Hello, everyone. This is Tom, and welcome to the Lone Wolf Prepper channel for my Sunday night live stream. Anyway, if you're watching the replay on this and you want to skip ahead about 3 minutes, that's fine. I'm waiting for people to show up and go over my little YouTube stuff first. If you want to just fast forward a few minutes so we get into the subject of when the wars come to your front door. Anyway, with the YouTube, I appreciate all the support the channel's getting. YouTube's really trying to knock it down. They're in complete control. Okay, and obviously my thoughts of the day have ruffled a few feathers, and they're really not putting my stuff on the feed anymore. Which I can't prevent that. They could always hit the delete button, but anyway, I'm not going to stop. So if they're expecting me to give up, hoping that they can silence me into giving up, it's not going to happen. Not to my last breath. But YouTube not sending out notifications at all. Play just shadow banning, the typical YouTube stuff to keep you quiet. And what do they want to do? Throw Elon Musk in jail because he won't, because he allows free speech on X, formerly known as Twitter. That's the world we live in today. You want to speak your mind, as long as you go with drink the Kool-Aid and recite their creeds, you can talk as much as you want. The truth? Nope. Yeah, France. Do you think Elon Musk really cares about the money he's making in France right now? Quiet him down. What do you guys got to hide? That's my question. You want to shut us up so much. What do you guys have to hide? I thought politicians and governments were supposed to be transparent. Anyway, you can't stop the truth from coming out. When people can see something is not right and they're getting a different story, they will eventually go to where the truth is. Just like the German citizens hiding under their blankets, listening to the radio, to the BBC, because they knew what they were hearing from their government was bullcrap. Oh, and by the way, in Germany, you could be put to death for that, for hearing the truth. Not only speaking it, but for hearing the truth, you could be put to death. Okay? Missouri's survival. Most people have the sixth sense something is terribly wrong. Yeah. Well, you don't even have anybody who lives in the real world. Anybody who doesn't believe in Kamala Harris is the best savior for this country. I mean, obviously you live like I do in the real world. Get up and go to work. You realize you're in charge of your life. Nobody else is going to give you a free handout. And even if somebody wanted to, you wouldn't probably take it anyway. That's the American spirit. Okay. And that's what they're trying to get rid of. Tearing down our statues, getting rid of our history, our traditions, our culture. Why? We were people that were kicked out of every country, sent over here to the wilderness. And look at what we became. Look what the world became because of that free thinking and that attitude where I'm not going to put up with any shit. Okay. And I'm not going to let somebody tell me what my limitations are. Anyway, one thing about Democrats, why I think they feel it's okay to be angry at people that, you know, accomplished something in their life, became wealthy or whatever, hating somebody because they're wealthy, is because they have no hope. They have no confidence in themselves that they can accomplish this stuff. Where the person that succeeds has more than enough confidence in himself. Missouri's survival. If they pass an unrealized capital gains tax, the inflation on people's pay of homes in such large, yeah. I mean, the inherent death tax and stuff. You know, if your father makes something of himself and has something to give to his sons, why should the government get involved when he wants to hand it over to his sons? I would rather see that the sons take over the ranch or the farm instead of what I saw in the 80s and 90s where the parents would die and then all of a sudden you'd have this 5 or 10 acre home site with a nice home completely leveled off, turned into a field. Why are we allowing this? I just, these taxes are out crazy. Okay. It's not like if you start spending money stupidly, you go buy a car that you can't afford. But all you got to do is go to your boss, demand that he gives you a raise so you can make your car payment. Then who's actually paying for your car? Self responsibility. Like I say, the main reason we have inflation is because people don't live within their means and we don't require our government to live within our means. Okay. And we were taken off the gold standard. That's why everything started changing in the mid and late 70s. We had inflation and the American dream started going away. Thank you, Nixon. And yeah, we're going to put us on the oil standard, right? And now Saudi Arabia is pretty much giving us the finger. Hi, Carol. How are you doing tonight? Anyway, yeah, I'm just waiting for the people to come in. I'm talking about YouTube and opinions and you know shutting us up. I have a channel of not even 500 subscribers. On that one page, I had almost 540, and then they knocked it way down. So, whatever. They're playing their games. But you know what? The message is still getting out. And I want all you to spread the message. And Carol, when you finally start your channel up and you put your one video on there of telling the government what you think of them, I'm watching it. I'll be your first view. I really wish people would do that. Like you say, then when they go to try to cheat, and we have 200 million channels of conservatives saying, I'm voting for Trump, how are they going to steal it? It would just help. I mean, we don't want to organize a force that's going to be just as strong as the force they're going to have on November 6th. Well, then we need to have an ace in our hole, more proof, so they can't steal. Anyway, it's not time for people to be silent. Before the revolution, the preachers in church, their sermons were filled of, we need to end this. We need to stop this. We're not going to be slaves. Instead of the churches we have now where they're just accepting a lot of things that my Christian values won't accept. So, but I'm not going to get into that. But let's get into the subject now. We're almost 8 minutes into it anyway. War when it comes to your front door. Okay. Anybody who thinks that all these wars that we're paying for and instigating and picking sides with aren't going to come to your front door, you're out of your mind. We're not protected by oceans anymore. We could have Chinese subs off the West Coast, Russian subs off the East Coast, and then a whole flotilla in the Gulf of Mexico. This is what's coming. And I don't think the average American realizes they're still thinking that we are protected. I mean, what happens if Mexico starts massing troops on our southern border? Well, they don't even have to do that. All they got to do is send them up. We'll get paid for them. That's insanity. That'll be my last one I get into the war being led on through the border. But anyway, I'll get into that. I say that's just, and we're paying for all this. Remember, as I'm going through this, we're paying for this. And as I'm going through this, I want everybody to remember, okay, the United States foreign policy has caused many people in the world to have to face war at their front door in many nations. While we Americans sit over here, most of us I'm not dealing with that no more. But I'm sitting over here when I'm supposed to be getting close to retirement, and we're all not dealing with what we're causing other people and other nations to deal with. How long do you think that's going to last? When it's going to rain, it's going to pour. That's what's going to happen. Anyway, so one thing I want to go into real quick is the good old days. Okay. When everything I see this, all these, like Israel tech and Hezbollah and all this stuff, that stuff's been going on for thousands of years. They just have more bigger weapons and stuff. Those people are never going to settle their differences. Definitely, them having nukes is a bad thing, but hopefully they just keep them over there. But anyway, the good old days, the Cold War. I wasn't the generation where we had to hide under our desks. We weren't doing that no more. But we did have signs in the school saying they were fallout shelters and stuff. Okay. So we're always, that was a big thing. We were going to get nuked by Russia. Don't make sure we don't get crazy and piss the other side off too bad. It was after the Cuban Missile Crisis, and they had that hotline between the two leaders of the countries and stuff. All right. Now look what we got to deal with. I mean, before we just had to worry about being nuked from Russia. And I'm bringing Russia and Ukraine up first is because Russia can affect us just like we're affecting them. Everybody remember that. I don't think Americans realize that Russia can send its bombers over, its hypersonic missiles, its subs. If they want to go all conventional on us, we're still going to be affected. Like I say, if they decide to start going all conventional on our cities and stuff and hitting, arming their hypersonic missiles with conventional warheads, remember they got the father of all bombs, still a conventional warhead. Okay? We can't nuke them then, can we? We're doing it to them. Okay? Our bombs are landing on their cities. But, that's what we're dealing with now. If that would have happened in the 80s, that would have been instant nuclear war. But see, our leaders were smart enough back then not to sit there and create that. We were in Vietnam and Korea and Beirut and Grenada and stuff, little stuff that in Iraq and stuff. Seeing you're picking on a first grader. But anyway, and then another thing in this country. You remember the good old days with no police state? Before Clinton decided that he needed to put 100,000 more cops on the street so every cop can have their own cop car and stuff. Remember what it was like? I grew up in a small town. Okay, we had 4 full-time cops. Okay, and they ran 24 hours. Okay, that was it. Okay, and everybody was friendly, but they had they had 2 cop cars, one that sat in the fire department shed that was used as a backup, and the one car they always shared. Same with the sheriff's department. The sheriff's car and the deputy's car. Has crime went down since then? Hell no, we're letting crime in through the borders. That's one thing, I was against that when Clinton was talking about that. I knew that was all stupid, hogwash. The thing is, they need to, even back then, start enforcing people when they break the law. Become a land of laws again instead of a land of men. Anyway, and, the small wars, nothing big, just enough to keep the military industrial complex happy and making enough money. You understand now? I guess they're greedy because they really want to get this baby going. Okay. I mean, the days of Monica Lewinsky. Oh, it seems a lifetime ago. Can you imagine if that's the only domestic problems we had now with Monica Lewinsky? Crazy time. And that was a big, big, big deal. Hell, we don't even have to worry about a politician's alley cat life anymore after Kamala's in there. I guess they can do whatever they want. That's fair game. And then we were dealing with Iraq. That Saddam Hussein under control. Gaddafi was behaving himself. You know, people in the United States. I mean, I remember one thing about the '90s is there was money everywhere. I mean, everything was really prosperous. You know, we still had factories. Um, it was before the big transition to the .com thing bubble, or before the internet all took off and stuff. You know, it just. But see, do you realize that now has taken wealth away from America and not given wealth to America? Everything that made this country strong, from building the factories to fight World War II, to the factories to build uh, things that in peacetime people want, washer and dryers, refrigerators, stuff that made our life more convenient. That's what made this country great. And the best thing about it, you bought a Ringer washer in the 50s, you could still be using it now. A lot of the widows back then in the 80s, they were still driving cars that their husbands bought in the 60s. But it was just a different time back then. And people were friendly to each other. It didn't matter what your political beliefs. The election came up, people casted their votes, and we went back to our business. Because maybe we trusted politicians more. And they weren't dividing us because we were still on the old same team, the American team. Anyway, and now I like to know you older people. When your political opinion didn't matter in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, how many of those friends don't you have anymore because it matters now? Crazy. Okay. But the war getting to our front door. Why is Ukraine and Russia at war in the first place? It has anything to do with the CIA and the US doing a coup on the duly elected government of that country just because it was pro-Russian in 2014. Remember that? And then Russia went into the Crimean. US sticking its nose in, just like Iran. Why are we dealing with Iran all these years later? Have anything to do with the US putting the Shah in there? Us pushing our values off on a people that, frankly, some of them just don't want our freedoms and rights as Americans. Well, obviously, that's coming to our country now because we got a lot of people that don't want freedom and rights no more. They want the laws passed so they can do crazy, stupid stuff and want to take our freedoms. Okay. And, but anyway, we had that coup. Pissed them off. Don't you think that'd make them mad? How about Russia go do a pro-Russia coup in Mexico or Canada? What will we say? Anyway, and then that's why. And then I like to say, the war comes out. Imagine Russia finally standing up for himself. Like the American people. Finally, when we stand up for ourselves. And then we're going to be the bad guys too. Don't worry about it. Well, we're already the bad guys. We're not even standing up for ourselves. All you got to do is speak your mind like on YouTube. But anyway, and then through all this, they're fighting for democracy and stuff, fair elections, and Zelensky cancels the election, and he's still in charge. Soon to be coming to a country near us, like maybe even us. Them with Trump's sentencing coming up, I think it's the 16th of September. Just imagine them putting him in jail and then come up, well, he's a convicted felon. He can't leave prison. He's been sentenced for 5 years. So we just don't need an election. Remember, nobody has voted for Kamala yet. Nobody. Why would they want to change that? Hi, Kristen. This is the world we live in. Like the short I made yesterday. You know, Kamala Harris could walk around on stage and don't have to worry about any harm happening to her. And she's the biggest threat to the country. And then Trump's the biggest threat to her. And he's got to stand behind bulletproof glass, and they're willing, openly saying they want to kill him, and nothing happens. Don't tread on me, you stupid sons of bitches. Okay. One thing too, in the tax, we're paying for this. Over $200 billion so far. I mean, it's okay for us to get, we're not allowed to have guns, right? They don't want us to have guns, but we can give a bunch of guns to Ukrainians and arm them to the teeth so they can kill Russians. That's okay. These people. I mean, see, this is why a lot of us don't understand liberals and how you can think like that, because we're logical thinkers. There's no way I could ever even agree with part of the stuff they agree with. It's frustrating. And then these creators get on there. We try to rationalize what they're doing when you can't rationalize it. How do you rationalize a guy named Buck Plug or whatever, that British guy, Monkey Plug, whatever, crazy name, transgender, reading books to kids, and be okay with that? An abortion van behind the Democratic National Convention for free abortion. Even if you're for abortion, that is not the place for it. But don't worry. If you're against it, don't get riled up. Do you see what they stand for? I believe, my deal on abortion is with what I believe in everything. Freedom of choice. I am not allowed to take your freedom of choice in any way. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but it means Columbus, I can't interfere with your freedom of choice. Everybody pays the consequences for their decisions. That's where you get life lessons. And I'm not going to, freedom of choice is what God gave us, okay? And I will not interfere with a gift that God gave you, a right God gave you. It's not my place. That's how I feel about it. So anyway, one thing about this Russian-Ukraine war, I don't understand. Even with the NATO weapons, Russia could have crushed Ukraine in a couple months. If they would have did what they did to Germany in World War II, which they are perfectly capable of, they could have destroyed Ukraine in a couple months. But then remember, Ukraine did want to sue for peace, and NATO told them they couldn't do it. So remember, they did have Zelensky at the peace table. We just didn't allow them to. That tells me that, eventually it's going to be us against them, which it pretty much is anyway. All right, they're just getting rid of all our old equipment. There's a lot of it been stacked up over the years. And eventually the two forces are going to hit each other with their best equipment. And that's when we're going to have hypersonic missiles hitting Chicago, LA, DC. Like I say, New York, just with conventional warheads. Hitting, what did Russia say? Command and control centers. They didn't say nothing about nuking them. They just said hitting them with, like I said, they hit them with some big bombs. Anyway, I just don't understand why Russia didn't do that in the first place. Special military operations. Screw that crap. It's war. You're taking your military weapons out to attack another country. It's war. And now, am I saying they were justified in doing it? I think if the U.S. were in the same situation with either Mexico or Canada, which we put Russia in with Ukraine, yeah, I think we would. So, uh, anyway, I just don't understand why Russia just don't go in there and just level the country. It just seems odd to me. What, they got a military industrial complex now that wants to get rich too? Crazy. Crazy. I mean, our bombs are hitting Moscow, taking out bridges, killing Russians with that invasion. NATO's equipment is killing Russian civilians. And Russia's doing nothing? I mean, I don't understand it. They got to have some type of weapon. Like they say, drop a father-of-all bombs on a position. And it makes no sense. They're fighting a war like the U.S., like they don't want to win it. They want to prolong it for some reason. Are they really all-star wrestlers yelling at each other on the microphone and all having a beer together? I don't know. But sometimes it sure acts like that. It seems like that. I would hope not on the world stage they're acting like that because them, it don't matter how you believe politically. You have just become a sucker. Okay? And the thing with tactical nukes. Back in the 80s, if this would have even, one of our bombs would have hit Moscow, it would have started World War III nuclear. Okay? Now we're going to gradually get into nuclear war, but it's going to happen. Remember, that's how World War II ended. It became a nuclear war, and then it ended. Okay? This war is only going to get started when it turns tactical nuclear. Okay? That's when it's finally going to get started. So where is it going to have to go to end? I haven't looked into my crystal ball that far. I really don't want to know. Because I know mankind can get really stupid. But everybody needs to know Russia can do to us what we can do to them. Space-based weapons, the whole works. Their government was just as crooked as ours is, okay? Everybody remember about that about governments. It's about taking the people, they want to take out, yeah, us civilians are going to die, but who are they really trying to take out? People in charge. We just happen to be stuck in the middle. Okay, now another war that will affect us on our shores if we get into it will be China and Taiwan. I just want to say one thing. If China wants to take over Taiwan, we're not going to be able to stop it. There's no way we can have it. I mean, China supplies the whole world with everything, almost everything they need. China and India. Well, China's a big one, okay? How are we supposed to get all those supplies over there to fight a war on a daily basis? We can't win. I tell you this, the Taiwanese people, but when China attacks you, you're on your own. Any ship that is over there by Taiwan will be sunk. All right? Because when China hits, they're not going to be messing around. And they're going to do for the killer blow. They're going to wait till they figure the other side's weak. I don't even think it's building up, but when they get through all the defenses, they're going to hit it hard. And it's just going to fall. But if we decide to get involved, say, how are we going to supply an armada over there? It's easy to supply an armada over in the Middle East. You may say, why? Because we got so many supply depots all over in that area. Supply ships coming out to sea all the time. A ship don't have to pull in the port to be resupplied. Sit there and you start cruising. You got one ship on one side, one ship on the other side. All three you're cruising down. One supplying you with food and stuff. Solid Caucasian Express. Don't forget about submarine fleet. They are undetected, lying off the coast of China at all times. I'm sure China has a submarine screening net around their coast too. Okay, but the thing is, you know what we can do? We can definitely totally destroy each country. That's not the option. But I'm just saying we cannot win a war and when they decide to take on Taiwan. All right, and one thing when you create a weapon like a sub is just a weapon system, is all it is. You create ways to counteract that weapon system. A lot of ways that the average person doesn't know. And if you think our weapons are so perfect, you know, and the systems to defend against this stuff are so perfect, then how come stuff still gets through? We've been sold a pack of lies. And this is one thing Americans are going to realize when the bombs start hitting our cities. We've been fed a pack of lies. Okay? It's just what's coming is bad. I was in the submarine fleet. I learned a lot in sub school. You were a sub guy? Well, I want to say something about sub guys, okay? Because whenever we pulled in the port, right, and there the sub would pull in with us, right, and they'd be off. They would pull up to the dock. They'd be out in the water and stuff, and they'd be surfaced. But anyway, those guys, you'd see them out on in the town and stuff, and they never talked to anybody else. They're always in their own little group, like afraid to say anything to anybody. I mean, what's the deal, man? You guys ain't sociable? I realize everything you do is highly top secret. But you know, you guys get the subs can be taken out. And they got a screen force. And when it all goes down, they're gonna know as much as they can before they attack. Try to know where every sub's at. But you know too, as well as I do, there's no way we can fight a war with Ukraine and Russia, a war in the Middle East, a war in the Taiwan, and then North Korea and South Korea will fire up because that war never really ended. Remember? I just, you know, I don't have faith in ones and zeros. I never have, and I never will. I'll never put my life in charge of ones and zeros. And there's spies back and forth. Why does China even have a submarine force? Anybody? Anybody? Bill Clinton. Remember in the 90s when he was selling secrets? Yep. Scary times are sure. I think we should stay out of the foreign affairs as much as possible. Yeah, no foreign entanglements. We get over these other countries. If they want to be free and live like us, they were supposed to come here, not us. And I was part of it at one time. I understand this. I saw the resentment people had back in the 80s towards Americans that was building because we were really becoming a bully. And then after the Soviet Union fell, that's when I started hating money so much because I saw what money did. But this is why we're going to have bombs falling in our cities because we won't stay out of other countries' wars. Let other countries determine their borders. If you're going to mess with another country and you got the USA, we'll back you up, we'll back you up. Of course, you're going to keep picking until they go to war with you. Now, if you couldn't beat them, you'd sit down and shut up. Zelensky was at the peace table. We told him no. How many Americans are going to die because they decided that? Just so people can make money. It's crazy. Boy, it's getting dark early tonight. Okay, it's such a nice night out. I want to do it live outside. But And then the Israel-Iran thing, like I say, they've been fighting for years and years and years. You know, I was over there in '87 for 2 weeks, and I had a really good time training with the Israeli commandos and doing a lot of diving and had a great time. And it was at peace then. And I remember it being I felt so safe there. I felt like the oldest person could walk down the darkest alley at night and not have to worry about nothing. And I know that must have really changed, but I just had a good experience there. But anyway, now between, and one thing I want, why is that war going on? Hamas was set up. Hamas was allowed to do that attack. How did they honestly think they were going to carry on an attack like that was October 6th? And Israel wasn't going to respond. And then Israel, all of a sudden, the shady stuff about pulling troops out and stuff. See, this is the thing in Israel. If you are in the military, you take your weapon home with you. You don't turn it into the armory. You take it home with you. So you are always ready. Now, that's what it used to be. Okay, people be getting off of their day in the military and they be getting on the bus to go home in their fatigues carrying their guns. Yeah, sitting down in a restaurant to eat. Military guys come in, they're carrying their guns. That's how prepared they were for war. So how did this happen? How could this have possibly happened? I mean, if you were in a city like, I don't know, let's say Fayetteville, North Carolina, where Fort Bragg, or let's go Marine Corps, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, Jacksonville. If all the Marines were allowed to take their weapons home, right? And all of a sudden that city got attacked at night, it makes no sense to me. Like I said, if you haven't been there or experienced it, it wouldn't make sense. It makes sense to you, but it doesn't make sense to me. But they set them up for Hamas to do this. And I think Israel had a lot to do with it. They knew it was going to happen. They allowed it to happen. Just like we allowed 9/11 to happen. And then Israel goes into war, and all this whole thing is a powder keg. Why? Because big money allowed it to happen. Bad people in charge allowed innocent people to be killed. And now look where we're at there. Now they're at Lebanon, and pretty soon Iran and Israel are going to be at it. But one thing I want to say about that, I don't feel that war is a threat to the U.S. I live approximately 6 miles from Fort Bragg. Oh, do you really? Yeah, we used to do a lot of training with the airborne out there. We do a lot of stuff at Fort Bragg and stuff. And, you know, when we do combined operations and stuff. But that's when we went to Fort Bragg. We worked with the airborne out there. But anyway, I don't understand it. So they allowed it to happen, and now they're at war in Iran, whatever, the whole area is going to blow up. But like I say, I don't think that war can affect us here because not any of those nations, besides Israel sending in their terrorists through our southern border, which is going to be a big problem when our United States 10 offensive starts, and it's going to. Hopefully it don't happen on like November 3rd or 4th of this year. Okay. But people better have their arms ready because you're going to be fighting a terrorist in your own neighborhood. Okay. And then maybe after you do that, you'll realize that, your government's maybe not, it doesn't have your best interests in mind. Okay. But I don't think that war, if we would just stay out of it, it's been going on for many, many thousands of years before the U.S. ever existed. And all of a sudden, our leaders are going to solve the Middle East crisis. I wonder how many leaders in history that we don't even know about through the thousands of years were thinking the same thing. They're both sides are mule-headed, stubborn. They're never going to solve their problems. And this is what's happening over thousands of years. Is that the way the U.S. is going to become? We're going to become so mule-headed and divided that we're just going to fight forever? Anyway. But the one war that we'll probably see at our doorstep first, if the other stuff don't happen before the election, is what we're going to deal with after the election in this country. They have divided us so bad. The comments I get on YouTube from people, I'm like, can you honestly think this and then think you're free? And then the other side doesn't want to discuss. They just want to insult and threaten. I mean, you watch these videos of these Karens and stuff on YouTube, insulting and threatening and demanding, screaming and hollering. How are you supposed to have a discussion with that? Okay, you can't. But anyway, with the political thing, this thing that Kamala Harris is just beating Trump and all this horse pucky. Like I say, nobody has voted for the woman yet. Trump got 79 million votes, which I know was a lot more, in 2020, and he's going to break the records in 2024. Like you say, Kamala, you're going to have to cheat and get at least 150 million votes. Trump will get 149, and then you'll be scratched. How did that happen? We had 175% voter turnout. Well, Kamala Harris won. And then with the Trump sentencing coming up, they're going to do something. I mean, they're pushing Russia so hard now. Just pushing them and pushing them and pushing them for Russia to do something major. Their civilians are dying. Our money and weapons are bringing war to people's front door, and we're celebrating it. Just like other countries, other citizens of other countries will celebrate it when the war is brought to our front door. Anyway, and then the immigration, the illegals coming through. Like I say, Tet Offensive, November 3rd and November 4th, that would cancel the election. Everybody'd be too scared to go out. They canceled the election in Ukraine. Zelensky's still in charge. They stole the election in 2020. Biden's still in office. We're not doing nothing. Why would they change if we're not going to change? If we're going to invite more tyranny, well, the morons that want to give it to us are going to keep giving it to us until they're stopped. Okay. And then, this financial thing that's going on, with them saying prices are going down. It's crazy. Gaslight the hell out of people. You want to see what prices used to be? Watch some old movies. I know that my wages haven't gone up 300% since the 1990s. But everything else has gone up. No inflation. And then, go to the digital dollar when our money's absolutely worthless and nobody will take it no more. A lot of problems are going to be solved in this country when that happens. Ain't can have no scammers because nobody's going to want the dollar bill. No more welfare system. For us people that are conservatives and prepared and independent and take care of ourselves and realize we're in charge of our life, we're going to be doing great. While these other people are carrying pitchforks, EBT people, welfare people are going to be burning down politicians' house because their hands not filled anymore. But don't worry. Everywhere they go will be a gun-free zone. But these people can't see that coming. Over $1 trillion a year to the welfare system in our country. How about we turn that into $1 trillion a year of productive people making money? $1 trillion. Over $1 trillion. And growing even higher because of all the illegals we're paying for. Anyway, war's coming to your front door, whether it be Russian bombs, Chinese bombs, or gunfire from illegals that have come up. Remember, you can be here legally and buy a gun, come here illegally, have no documentation and still buy a gun legally, get a driver's license and vote, buy a house and all that stuff. Crazy. You know, they don't even have to come up here and start a war with us. Do you realize these people can come up here illegally, get to right to vote, and just vote all these retards out that are allowing this to happen, and they can take over our country just by voting. They don't have to fire a single bullet. Because you'd have at least 33% of America voting with them because they're feeling guilty about their whiteness. Anyway, I got to get to the end of this live stream. Anyway, what it comes down to is you need to prepare. You need to prepare to be on your own for months. Bad times are coming to the U.S. America is finally going to start feeling the wrath of its own retarded foreign policy. And I realize we're going to be the victims of our politicians. But just remember who caused this. Remember to pass all this on to your grandchildren one day. Hopefully that their grandchildren won't make the same mistakes. Okay? Our grandparents warned us about the Great Depression, told us what it was like. And we're bringing even a harder one on. I guess some lessons just got to be learned twice as hard, right? Anyway, I want everybody to have a good night. I'm going to come out with a video tomorrow on the subject I'm doing about time in the trenches. I just figured I'd do a video on that. I don't want to bore my live stream with that. That's more directed at the younger generation. So, and we all, our age, feel the same way, okay? We all realize we were in charge of our life and we had to do our time in the trenches to make this country great so we could earn our way to retirement, okay? By the way, I'm going to make a video on that. So everybody have a good night, and I'll be back Friday. I just can't wait to see what all happens during the week. Like my prediction is, if I'm right, by Friday, Kamala Harris will be president. We'll see. We'll see. It'd be nice to be wrong once, but it doesn't matter. Whatever egghead's in charge. But anyway, watch that video, and you'll see what I mean. Anyway, everybody have a good night. This Lone Wolf Prepper out.